Welcome back to Panda Audiobooks. You are listening to Pursuit of the Truth by Jen, covering chapters 101 through 105. The time for trading medicine and playing politics is coming to an end. The Han Mountain trial is shifting from a test of the soul to a test of the body. As Su Ming prepares to join the ascent, he must decide how much of his true Berserker power he can reveal without exposing his past. The mountain is calling, and only the strong will reach the peak. Prepare for the ascent. Chapter 101, beheading him right before their eyes. That red light passed by their bodies and disappeared. The tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe trembled. He only had one more tribe member by his side, and he was also shaking. They looked at each other and saw the other person's fear. They still did not manage to see whether their enemy was a person or a beast, but the numerous threads floating behind the red light gave them the impression that it was hair. Who is it? Who are you? Show yourself. The remaining normal Berserker of Black Mountain Tribe shouted immediately. When his comrade was yelling, the tribe leader's face was pale. He raised his right hand and slammed it against his chest. A blood-red light erupted forth from his body immediately. Increasing the power of his Qi temporarily without care of his injuries to fight wasn't something he wanted to do, but this time it was necessary. He dashed towards the forest at full speed and disappeared into the darkness provided by the woods. The remaining person from Dark Mountain Tribe was just about to run away as he continued yelling, but at that moment, his body lurched forward. A red light suddenly appeared and circled his body once before turning into Su Ming, who stopped to stand behind the person. Blood trickled down the corners of the person's mouth. His whole body was in great pain due to the threads of moonlight binding him together and tearing into his flesh. They were wound so tightly around him that he could feel death getting closer to him. Breathing sounds came from his back, so he struggled to turn his head and see who was that unknown person who brought such terror upon him. Yet he could not turn his head. Still trembling, he was torn apart. Su Ming panted harshly. Ever since the tribe migrated, he had been fighting non-stop. He had also been suppressing the internal injuries he sustained when he broke through the Elder's seal. If it were not for the moonlight, which allowed him to gradually recover, he would have already fallen. It was the night of the full moon. The mysterious powers of the moonlight had reached their peak, causing Su Ming's blood to seem like it was burning. It allowed him to continue fighting for a longer period of time, suppressing all his internal injuries and allowing him to kill all of his targets. He held 3 heads in his hands, and looking at the forest before him, he calmly walked towards it. You're the only one left, tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe. Since you have such a high status, I'll let you die a glorious death. That is, if you run fast enough to meet up with your reinforcements. Su Ming licked his lips and dashed forward, turning into a red arc. He sped forward, countless moonlight threads trailing behind him. The tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe was a man in his 40s. His status within the tribe was very high. There, besides the elder and by Su, he had the highest status. He should have been leading a large amount of his tribe members to viciously kill the Berserkers of Dark Mountain Tribe, and right before the captured men, enjoy their women, then as they cried and struggled, drank wine and raped them as he laughed. After that, he would tear off the heads of the angered men from Dark Mountain Tribe to obtain a maddening pleasure. This was his desire. The desire roused within him when he announced the raid on Dark Mountain Tribe after the elder had given the order. He even told the other Berserkers of his desire before he left. As those Berserkers let out excited cries, this battle began. Yet right now he was reduced to a pathetic state. His body was injured, he was covered in blood, and he had lost his will to fight. He was first shocked by Dark Mountain Tribe's resistance, then was injured by Nan Song. After fleeing from battle, he had even discovered that he was tricked and was just about to heal his wounds before pursuing Dark Mountain Tribe once again when that mysterious nightmarish presence appeared. His tribe members who had died when their heads were separated from their bodies made him feel incredibly afraid. He could not see the other person, only a long red arc. He was exhausted. He did not have the courage to go back and fight. Even more so, he did not have the courage to trigger his blood veins to explode because he was not a normal Berserker. He was the tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe. He knew that Black Mountain's reinforcements were on their way, and there was a possibility that they were very close to him. If he ran fast enough, then he could meet up with them. Blood continued trickling down his mouth, and fatigue continued building up by several folds in his body. The sudden explosive burst of power also reached its limit as the blood-red light around his body dimmed. He staggered as he continued forward, but did not dare stop. Still, he could prevent his speed from slowing down. But the moment it did so, the strange cry that had made him feel utmost terror returned. That strange cry was similar to the one they had emitted when they were pursuing Dark Mountain Tribe, but this one sounded sharper. When the tribe leader from Black Mountain Tribe heard it, he felt as if his mind was on the verge of breaking. At that moment, he heard a whistling sound traveling towards his back. He gritted his teeth and turned around, letting out a roar as he hurled his fist forward. But the moment he did so, he saw a head thrown at him at high speed. His fist landed on the head, and the tribe leader saw not just the head exploding into pieces, but also a flash of red. Behind that red long arc, there were countless threads, which only increased its strange mysteriousness. He let out a pained scream. Blood gushed out, and the tribe leader's right arm was torn from his body. With the coming of that red light, his right arm was shredded to pieces right before his eyes. Fear completely enveloped the tribe leader. He bit his tongue, and blood flowed out from his mouth. The vague shadow of a gigantic big blood bear appeared behind his back. It grabbed his body and threw him into the deepest part of the forest. Using that momentum, the tribe leader fled for his life. Once the blood bear threw the tribe leader, its body was immediately surrounded by threads of moonlight. After being enveloped by several layers, the blood bear crumbled and disappeared from Earth. Su Ming appeared. His face was pale, and his eyes were calm, but there was a cruel smile on his lips. "It's about time." He took a deep breath. The moonlight blended into his body through his wounds and nourished his body so that he could have the strength to perform the many tasks he wanted to do. Looking in the direction the tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe had fled in, Su Ming dashed forward, giving chase once again. His speed had surpassed that of the tribe leaders of Black Mountain Tribe, but he was not in a hurry. A strange light flashed in his eyes. He knew that the danger looming over the tribe had not disappeared completely. He could deduce from the tribe leader's actions that Black Mountain Tribe still had reinforcements. That was why he was not in a hurry to kill that tribe leader. He chose instead to chase after him closely. When berserkers from the same tribe lived together for an extended period of time, they would feel connected through their blood veins. From that connection, they could somewhat tell where the other were. Su Ming knew about this. So even though he did not know where Black Mountain Tribe's reinforcements were, the tribe leader would definitely do. If he chased the tribe leader down, he could find this batch of reinforcements and slaughter them all. Only then would his tribe be completely safe for the rest of their migration. Besides, he needed to find a good moment to kill the tribe leader. If he could kill him right before his reinforcements, it would deal a huge blow to their morale, which would make it easier for Su Ming to massacre them in his exhausted state. After the time of 2 incense sticks burning away, the tribe leader was still continuing to run madly forward. He had lost his right arm, but he did not care about it. As he ran, the desire to continue living appeared in his eyes. He did not want to die. He could somewhat feel from his blood veins that the reinforcements from the tribe were close. They were right before him. He could even smell the presence coming from his tribe members. The desire to live became even stronger in his eyes. He had never been in such a pathetic state over the past 40-something years of his life, neither had he ever been so terrified. In fact, that fear was even stronger when what he had felt while fighting against Nan Song. That was because he could see Nan Song, but he still hadn't seen who that mysterious killer was. The only thing he could see was the blood-red light and the numerous threads left behind by the killer's speed. At that moment, the strange sharp cry that made him fall into desperation came once again from behind him. That voice was like death knells, and every single time it appeared, it brought about pain and terror that the tribe leader could not withstand. In fact, the moment he heard the voice, he immediately coughed out blood. The injuries and fatigue in his body made him feel as if he could no longer hold on. He was like a bird that was wounded by an arrow. Every single time it heard the sound of the bow, it would fall to the ground in fear. "Who are you? Just who are you?" The tribe leader shouted loudly. His face was pale when he saw the root of his terror once again. The blood-red arc that sped towards him with countless threads behind it surrounded his body once, and his left hand was separated from his body before it exploded into pieces. Letting out a pained scream, the tribe leader fell into despair. Yet as he fell into despair, a strong desire to live resurfaced because he heard those strange cries once again. However, this time, the cries did not make him afraid, they made him ecstatic. That was Black Mountain Tribe's cry. He let out a huge roar and retreated a few steps quickly before using up all his strength, summoned right down from his soul, and madly dashing towards where he'd heard his tribe members. His consciousness was beginning to fade. There was only one thought in his mind: to unite with his tribe. Very soon, before a marginally empty space filled with snow and a few dried branches, he saw 5 people charging out from the forest. Those people were all incredibly familiar to him. When he saw his tribe members, the reinforcements from Black Mountain also saw their tribe leader, the man who always stood at the top of their tribe. Yet now, the tribe leader was in a very pathetic state, one that they had never seen on his person. The fear in his eyes, the blood on his face, and the body that had lost both arms, made their expressions change. Looks of horror naturally appeared on their faces, as if they were about to face a great and powerful enemy. They could not believe that the tribe leader was the only one left after having led so many berserkers out to chase after Dark Mountain Tribe. That look of fear on his face was as if he'd met with something incredibly terrifying. "Save me!" Once the tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe saw his tribe members, a strong sense of joy appeared from the midst of his despair. Yet that joy did not last long. When the tribe members were about to arrive, a red long arc appeared behind the tribe leader. It closed in on him in the blink of an eye, and right before the people who came to help, it surrounded the tribe leader, who let out shrill screams of pain and unwillingness. The tribe leader's waist was suddenly sliced apart. Because he was running, blood scattered all over the place. He fell, and his legs continued twitching, but in his eyes were joy, despair, and a dead stillness. Once these emotions blended together, they formed a sight that made all those who saw grow cold with fear. The reinforcements from Black Mountain were all taken aback. Panic appeared on their faces, and they all turned pale. The tribe leader had died right before their eyes. This was something they had never once experienced in their lives. It made their hearts tremble as dread filled their bodies. They saw the red light that killed the tribe leader flash before turning into a frail-looking person. There was a huge bow slung across his back, and in his hands, he held a long spear. There were threads of moonlight floating behind him like a cloak, and those threads spread hundreds of feet behind him. His presence was shocking. This was a teenager, or at the very least, a person that looked like a teenager. That calm look on his face, the frail-looking body, and the stillness in his eyes seemed to hide something terrifying that wanted to devour all living beings. It made all the people from Black Mountain Tribe center their fears and the shock dealt by the tribe leader's death on his person. Even the tribe leader died in his hands. Terror and shock filled all the hearts of the berserkers from Black Mountain Tribe gathered here. From their terrified glances, they saw the youth who stood hundreds of feet away from the corpse of their tribe leader not sparing a glance at them. Instead, he stood by their tribe leader's corpse and lifted the long spear in his hands before cutting off their tribe leader's head like he was cutting off the head of a beast. He picked it up and looked up, casting a glance at the 5 people from Black Mountain Tribe standing not too far away. The shadow of the blood-red moon was in his eyes. It was enchanting, but it also held a stillness and a horrifying look that made people tremble. The moment he looked towards the people from Black Mountain Tribe, all of these berserkers reflexively took a few steps back. Their minds were roaring. That gaze made their fear grow even stronger. This was someone that even the tribe leader was afraid of, and he died right before their eyes. How could they not be afraid? Especially when Su Ming had threads of moonlight that spanned hundreds of feet floating behind him and were giving off a piercing cold glare. Yet among the 5 people was a man in his 40s who was trembling so hard that his eyes were red. He looked similar to the tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe. "Brother!" the man cried out and charged towards Su Ming. Behind him, the other tribe members of Black Mountain Tribe suppressed their fears and dashed forward as well. Su Ming stood beside the tribe leader's corpse. His eyes were freezing cold. The moment the man charged towards him, he swung his left hand leisurely, and a dash of red powder scattered forth as it was impacted by his chi. When the man who was leading the charge got closer, His entire body trembled. A wound caused by a formless moonlight thread appeared on his face. The blood from the wound immediately started heating up as if it was burning, and before that person could even make a sound, his body turned into red mist and rose into the air abruptly. Fallen. Fallen Berserker. He's a fallen Berserker. Cries of surprise rose up. The faces of the 4 people from Black Mountain Tribe who wanted to charge forward changed once again. They immediately stopped as dismayed expressions appeared on their faces. The sight of their tribe leader's death and the look of horror on his face before his death resurfaced in their minds. It made their terror reach their peak at that very instant. Just as the 4 people were about to retreat, Su Ming moved. Under the full moon, the threads of moonlight that were floating behind him charged towards the 4 people who were overcome by fear and shock. Chapter 102. Why? Su Ming used the tribe leader as a guide to help him locate the reinforcements from Black Mountain Tribe. Then right before their eyes, he cruelly killed their tribe leader and beheaded him. He made sure to exaggerate his movements, and with that strange look of his under the full moon, his advantage over Black Mountain Tribe reached its peak in an instant. Su Ming had to do it. He was already incredibly tired. Even if he had the nourishment provided by the moon, he still had to spare strength to kill Xianxia. He hated that traitor who had escaped into the forest after being injured. Thus, he had to take into account how to complete his mission with his remaining stamina and why he decided to use psychological warfare. His actions when he killed the man that looked similar to the tribe leader of Black Mountain Tribe further added to his mysteriousness. The terror that came with the title of Fallen Berserker made all 4 of Black Mountain Tribe's members serving as reinforcements lose the will to fight when he charged towards them. They all chose to turn and flee from the place. In truth, even without the man who looked similar to the tribe leader, Su Ming would have still used the same tactic of bringing fear to these people by attacking their mental states. For the next few moments, in the small empty space in the forest, whistling sounds would come, followed by cries of despair an instant before death silenced them. After a long while, as silence gradually returned to the clearing, Su Ming walked out of the forest, dragging his body. A few more wounds marred it. One of the injuries made by a knife seemed so deep it looked like it had reached his bones. Both it and the others slowly stopped bleeding under the moonlight, but Su Ming's face was as pale as the snow on the ground. Behind him lay 4 corpses, their blood dyeing the snow red. They had paid the price for Black Mountain Tribe's invasion. In truth, Black Mountain Tribe already regretted underestimating Dark Mountain Tribe's resistance and overestimating their own elders' might. It started from the time they had laid the trap in the forest. Yet because they were already too far down the road, had already fought to this state, without the elders' command, they did not dare to withdraw. They could only continue committing one mistake after another. Even so, there were still some warriors from Black Mountain Tribe who were not dead, merely injured. They were stunned by their battle against Dark Mountain Tribe. So they did not continue chasing after the migrating tribe, but neither did they return to Black Mountain Tribe. They chose instead to spread out and hide in the deeper parts of the forest, thinking of ways to use their injuries as an excuse to back out of the fight. Dark Mountain Tribe's madness was carved deep into these people's bones. Su Ming ran through the forest, panting harshly, as he searched for tracks on the ground. He was using the tracking skills he had acquired naturally when he was in the forest to now search for Xianxia. He had to find him to get the reason for his betrayal for Nan Song, all the people from Dark Mountain Tribe, and all those who he knew had died in the trap. Thunderous roars still echoed in the sky. The battle in which the elder had sacrificed some of his life to hold back Black Mountain Tribes by 2 was still ongoing. He was doing everything that he could to ensure the tribe's safety. Su Ming did not make a sound, but the determination and resolution in his eyes did not decrease in the slightest. While quickly chasing Xianxia down using the tracks the man had left behind, Su Ming saw multiple frozen bodies on the way. All these corpses belonged to the tribe members who had chosen to stay. Sadness rose in his heart when looking at these people, but he also felt respect towards them. He passed by the bodies of his deceased tribe members, and eventually, Su Ming stopped moving upon reaching a deeper part of the forest. Before him was a big tree. Underneath it there was a man. His hands lay by his sides. In his right hand there was a zun made of bone. The blood staining the instrument had turned brown. It had even covered some of the holes. Su Ming went closer and looked at Liu Di, who had already died. His corpse was rigid, and his dull eyes were directed at the sky. There was no way of knowing what he was looking at before he died. Perhaps he was just doing what was depicted in Dark Mountain Tribe's funeral song, asking who was owner of the pair of eyes looking at him from the blue tinge in the sky, and who was the owner of the blinking star at night. Su Ming slowly crouched down while looking at Liu Di. He picked up the zun made of bone and put it away in his bosom. He could not forget the many nights when he was annoyed by the moaning sounds of the zun echoing in the otherwise quiet tribe. There were even times when he had wanted to look for this man and complain, but managed to stop himself before actually doing it. Now, Su Ming closed his eyes. He badly wanted to hear a song played by the zun, but the owner of the instrument had passed away. Su Ming left. He left, bringing with him his speed and the countless moonlight threads floating behind him as he dashed through the forest. He continued chasing after Shan Hen, using the footprints he had left. Shan Hen's footprints were erratic and messy. It was a sign which meant that the man was not only badly wounded, but his heart was also in disarray. That was why when fleeing, he had forgotten to cover his tracks. Perhaps he did not even expect for there to be someone who would chase after him. If that weren't the case, then with his identity as the chief of the hunters in Dark Mountain Tribe, Shan Hen would have covered his tracks, because his familiarity with the forest was on par with Su Ming's. The chase continued as time went by. It was midnight. The full moon hung in the sky. The moon shone so brightly, its light dimmed out the glow of the stars around it. When it was almost certain that the thick fog could not cover the moon, Su Ming arrived at the ravine created by the elder to prevent their pursuers from Black Mountain Tribe from advancing. The screen of light was broken, and it had long since disappeared. Su Ming saw Wu La here. She lay there quietly, her face almost smiling. He went to where she was with light footsteps and looked at her. He looked at her pale and muddled face, and seemed to hear her last words before she died. "Are you Mo Su?" He stood by her corpse for a long while before raising his foot and walking past her in one swift motion. Su Ming walked away and came to where he had killed Bai Su. Bai Su's corpse was no longer there. Someone had taken the body away. As Su Ming ran through the place, the sights that fell into his eyes made him recall just how devastating the battle between the tribes had been. The memories were carved deep into his heart. Then he arrived at a place that made his body jolt. That place was still part of the forest. Right ahead, he saw torn limbs and pieces of flesh lying on the ground. Only the white strands of hair reminded him of those familiar old people. This was the place where the elderly from the tribe had chosen to stay when the tribe had just left the trap. These old people were all dead. A lonely breeze blew through the land, lifting up the snow and the scattered white strands of hair on the ground. They had asked for an item from the elder that would allow them to self-destruct. In their remaining moments, they had talked about their pasts, and when the pursuers from Black Mountain Tribe had arrived, they laughed fearlessly and turned into loud banging sounds. Su Ming bowed towards the pool of blood before him. These normal old folk from the tribe were as deserving of respect as the berserkers who had died in battle. He lifted his feet and silently walked past that plain of snow. On the way, he found 5 arrows belonging to the head of the guards. He placed them in the quiver, and as he continued chasing after Shan Hen, he arrived at the battlefield where they had had the largest number of deaths, where the battle between the tribes was at its most devastating point. It was the place where Black Mountain Tribe had laid the trap. When he saw it, Su Ming's desire to kill Shan Hen became even stronger. There were too many corpses on the ground, especially right before Su Ming. The dozens of bodies of the youths who had done nothing to contribute to the tribe in the past lay in front of him. The memory of them rushing out without looking back made Su Ming's heart clench, as if he was seeing it happen all over again. He was following Shan Hen's footsteps. These footprints told Su Ming that everything he saw, Shan Hen saw as well while fleeing. In fact, his footprints were sunk deeper into the ground here, as if he had stopped for a time. Could Shan Hen be going there? Su Ming mumbled. A complicated look appeared on his face. Shan Hen was the chief of the hunters in the tribe since Su Ming was very young. He was, in fact, just like the head of the guards. They were both adults and powerful warriors respected by the La Sus of the tribe. The two men had different personalities, causing the head of the guards to be well liked by the La Sus. Yet Xianxia's aloof attitude also made them feel protected, even though they were afraid of him. Perhaps he had to be aloof and indifferent. As the chief of the hunters and the hunting team, protecting Dark Mountain Tribe and providing enough food made him spend most of his time outside the tribe hunting wild beasts. Xianxia had stained his hands with too much blood. He might have been capable of smiling, but those smiles would only appear on his face when he hid himself in a dark corner as he watched the tribe members cheer loudly because there was enough food and no one had to die of starvation. Most of the people in the tribe would not be able to see his smile. Why would someone like this betray the tribe? Su Ming walked by the trap site without making a sound. He no longer looked at the footprints left on the ground. He could already guess where Xianxia was. Once he walked past the trap's place, Su Ming turned into a long red arc as he sped forward under the moon. Time passed by. Gradually, in the distance before his eyes, a faint outline appeared in the night. That place was once filled with laughter, joy, and happiness. Every night, there would be bonfires lighting up the area. There would be tribe members dancing around it, and there would be lassos playing at night. That place held 16 years of Su Ming's memories. Now, it was desolate, broken, ruined. That was their tribe, Dark Mountain Tribe. As Su Ming got closer under the moonlight, he saw a man crying on his knees in amid the snow and chaos on the ground, located at the center of the tribe void a giant gate. The sounds of his weeping ran loud and clear in the silent night. Filled with grief and sadness, they echoed through the empty surroundings, causing Su Ming to falter in his footsteps. Is this sadness real? He clenched his fists and firmly walked towards the man. Once he went past the broken gate and was only 1,000 feet away from the crying man, Su Ming stopped. He looked at the man's back, listened to his pain-filled cries, and looked at his former home. His heart hurt as if he was being stabbed with a knife. Why? Chapter 103, Xianxia. Su Ming stood at the ruined tribe and looked at the weeping man. He did not get an answer to his question. That man was Xianxia. He was crying as he knelt at the center of the tribe. His face was filled with pain, but there was also indecision, regret, and sorrow. Su Ming was silent. He did not make a move, as if waiting for Xianxia's answer. After a long while, through which the cold wind continued blowing across the land and lifting the debris on the ground to turn in circles, Xianxia stopped crying and slowly stood up before turning and looking at Su Ming. Those eyes were bloodshot and tired. Those familiar eyes now seemed like strangers' eyes. This person, whom Su Ming was well acquainted with, was now Dark Mountain Tribe's traitor. If it weren't for him, the number of deaths in the tribe would have definitely not been so devastating. You told Black Mountain Tribe the route we would take for our migration. Su Ming looked at Xianxia as he walked towards him with grief on his face. When I came back, you were all getting rid of the scouts from Black Mountain Tribe. At that time, you all worked separately, so no one noticed where you went. You did not kill those from Black Mountain Tribe in your area. You told them where we were going instead. He continued walking forward. Xianxia's face was pale. He laughed brokenly and staggered backwards, as if he could not withstand Su Ming's accusations. Lots of our tribe members died in that trap. After that, you bore through it patiently until the most important moment arrived. When only Lei Chen, Grandpa Nansong, you, and I stayed back, you badly injured Grandpa Nansong, turning the tides of the battle. Do you really want to see Black Mountain Tribe chase us down and massacre our people? Su Ming asked in a hoarse voice as he came closer. The pain on Xianxia's face grew even stronger, and he took a couple more steps back. I have two things I don't understand. 1. Why did you betray the tribe? 2. Why did you not let Bei Ling and his father stay? Was it because you had no confidence whether those two could be taken down by Black Mountain Tribe after you injured Grandpa Nansong? Or was it because you had a sudden bout of guilty conscience? With a swift move, Su Ming suddenly closed in until he was 200 feet away from Xianxia. Tell me, why? Say no more. Xianxia's face was pale and desolate as he suddenly shouted in a loud voice. His pain and sadness erupted forth at that moment as well. He took a few steps back, staring at Su Ming. Say no more. There is no reason, none. Tears fell from Shan Hen's eyes. He raised his right hand, and immediately blood-red light flashed in his hand. The red light surrounded his arm, and he pointed a finger at Su Ming. I don't care whether you're Su Ming or Mo Su. Get out of here. I can't die yet. Give me another 10 years. Once 10 years have passed, I will kill myself here. If you continue bothering me, then don't blame me for not showing you the mercy of a fellow tribe member. The indifferent look on Shan Hen's face was gone. At that moment, he was like a roaring wild beast. He took a leap back, as if he was about to leave the tribe. If you can even betray the tribe, then don't talk about showing me the mercy of a fellow tribe member. When you injured Grandpa Nan Song, did you think about what would happen if we died and those pursuers caught up with our tribe? Did you think about the fate that would fall on their heads? Su Ming gritted his teeth, and with blood scales in his right hand, he rushed towards Shan Hen. Su Ming turned into a long red arc, countless moonlight threads floating behind his back. In the blink of an eye, he closed in on Shan Hen. Crashing sounds erupted in the once beautiful tribe. As they erupted, Shan Hen roared, and a blood-red blade materialized in his right hand, clashing with the long spear and causing wind to roll out from around them like waves. Dark blood dust. Shan Hen retreated a few steps. He coughed out blood, and his face turned pale. The blood turned into a cloud of blood mist midair and charged towards Su Ming. Shan Hen's power was great, and his dark blood dust was not something Su Ming could compare to. The moment the art was cast, it spread hundreds of feet around them. If the mist landed on Su Ming, it would pierce through his body, as if it was made up of sharp arrows. Yet the moment the blood mist with the penetrating ability charged towards him, covering the sky, Su Ming's eyes filled with the shadow of the moon and flashed brilliantly. Tonight was the night of the full moon. The fine threads made of moonlight floating behind him tumbled forward in an instant. The moment the blood mist closed in, the moonlight threads swiftly gathered before Su Ming, turning into a screen of light, and clashed with the blood mist. After a loud crash, Su Ming trembled. The threads of moonlight started cracking inch by inch, but the blood mist also dispersed as if blown away by a huge gust of wind. At the same time, as blood trickled out of the corners of Shan Hen's mouth, he staggered back a few dozens of feet. Then he turned and ran. He did not move to fight but to leave the place as soon as possible. There was no way Su Ming would let him leave. He dashed after the man, but the moment he got closer, Shan Hen turned around abruptly. There was pain in his eyes, but there was also killing intent. Su Ming, you forced me to do this. Shan Hen let out a roar, and he lifted the blood-red blade in his hands. In the blink of an eye, a berserker mark in the shape of a blade appeared on his face. It was his berserker mark. The moment the mark appeared, the space behind Shan Hen started twisting. A giant red blade materialized and swung down. It passed through Shan Hen's body and went for Su Ming's head with tremendous killing intent. That blade was stunning. It was Shan Hen's, who was the chief of the hunters in Dark Mountain Tribe, strongest move. The number of people and beasts that had died under that blade was far too great. A lot of moonlight instantly turned into fine threads that surrounded the blade swinging down at Su Ming. Yet the moment they touched the sword, they were all torn apart. The blade was about to touch Su Ming. His eyes blazed, and fire started spreading through them, like his pupils had just been lit on fire. The moment the flames appeared, Su Ming immediately felt that his qi was burning, as if there was a fire that could burn heaven and earth within him. The strength of the fire under the full moon was greater than on any other day. Su Ming did not howl. Instead, he raised his right hand as his eyes burned and pressed his palm against the blood blade coming towards him. Flames erupted forth from his body at that instant and enveloped him within them, turning him into a gigantic man of fire. The fire giant looked like it took in a breath as it looked at the full moon in the sky. At that moment, it was as if the moonlight from the entire world was sucked towards it, causing the area to become darker. Fire! Su Ming whispered. While chasing after Shan Hen, he had already felt the fire building up in his body under the full moon. It was as if he just needed a thought, and the flames would burst forth from his body. The fire giant slammed its head against the blood blade as Su Ming pressed his right palm forward. When it rushed towards the blade, it no longer looked like a person, but turned into a sea of fire and burned the blade. Booming sounds shook the sky and earth at that instant. The sea of fire and the blood blade crumbled apart at the same time. Disbelief appeared on Xianxia's face, and he coughed out blood. He was already gravely wounded to begin with and could not withstand the attack. As his body tumbled backwards, he coughed out blood once again in midair. He staggered to regain his footing before retreating. Blood trickled down Su Ming's mouth. The blood fell on the snow below, and a lot of snow melted instantly as if burned away. When Su Ming saw that Xianxia was about to run, he took a huge step forward and ruthlessly threw blood scales. Whistling sound echoed through the air. Blood scales turned into a giant blood-red eagle and fell before Xianxia, who was trying to escape. It crashed heavily, stirring up a wall of snow that made Xianxia flinch. At the same moment, Su Ming stomped on the ground once, and by his side, a stone knife left behind by one of his people as they left jumped up from the patch of snow. He caught it in his hand and closed in on Xianxia in the blink of an eye, thrusting the knife forward. "I can't die." Xianxia's face was vicious. The moment Su Ming thrust the knife towards him, a weak red light flashed on Xianxia's right hand's fingers, and they turned into a red blade. The two thrust their blades into each other's bodies almost at the same time. "Give me 10 years. Just 10 years. Xianxia roared, panting harshly, his body filled with pain. "When I was young, you were an adult I respected. I knew that you had to force yourself to be indifferent because your responsibilities were great. You had to protect the tribe. The tribe needed the friendliness of the head of the guards, but it also needed someone who was aloof. That was why you chose to be aloof. I'll let you stab me as thanks for protecting the tribe in the past. But I absolutely won't forgive you. Our people who died because of your betrayal also won't forgive you." Blood flowed down the corners of Su Ming's mouth. He pressed against Xianxia's body and took out the stone knife, then stabbed once again. "This is from all the elderly folk in the tribe who had died. This is from all the people who weren't useless and died for the tribe leader," Su Ming whispered in Xianxia's ear and stabbed him once again. "This is from Wu Lane, this is from Liu Di." Tears fell from Su Ming's eyes as he continued stabbing Xianxia, lost in his sadness. With each stab, Xianxia's body would tremble, pressed against Su Ming. Blood continued flowing from his mouth. He was also crying in pain and in sorrow. "This is from Grandpa Nan Song." Su Ming looked at the ruins of the tribe. He supported Xianxia so that he would not fall and pushed his body back, stabbing him once again with the knife in his right hand. As he kept pushing Xianxia back, a long, terrifying line of blood trailed down after them through the snow until the hunter's back hit a giant fence that wasn't too damaged surrounding the tribe. With a bang, the fence shook as Su Ming stabbed again. "This is from the elder." "This is from me," he said in a low tone and sank the stone knife in his hands deeply into Xianxia's heart. The head of the hunters fell on him and convulsed repeatedly, the light in his eyes gradually becoming dimmer. It was quiet around them. They were the only two people in the tribe, and looked as if they were hugging each other. Su Ming closed his eyes. After a long while, he took a few gentle steps back, and Xianxia's body fell to the side. There was no longer any light in his eyes. It was as if he could no longer see Su Ming, struggling to lift his trembling right hand and bring out a small piece of bone from his bosom. It was a very tiny bone, and it looked like the leg bone of a baby. As he held that tiny piece of bone, tears fell from Xianxia's blank eyes. Crying, his breathing faded away, and so did his life. Chapter 104, The Place Closest to the Sky. Su Ming stood silently and looked at Xianxia who had fallen before him. Su Ming was filled with complicated emotions towards the traitor of Dark Mountain Tribe. Killing him did not bring any satisfaction to him, it only made him even more burdened. If it were not because this person had committed a crime punishable by death, who would want to kill his own tribe member? If it were not because this person caused so many deaths due to his mistake, who would want to kill the powerful Berserker he had admired since he was still a child? Su Ming looked at Xianxia's eyes, which were still open. His dull eyes seemed to be looking at a place Su Ming could not see, and he wondered what he was thinking about before his death. The small piece of bone belonging to a baby was stained with Xianxia's blood. He held it tightly in his hand, as if that was his deepest attachment prior to death. Su Ming did not know why Xianxia betrayed the tribe. There was no answer to it. He took a few steps and crouched down. As he looked at Xianxia, he recalled the kindness and laughter in this man's eyes as La Su's cheered when he brought back the beast fangs for them. Su Ming raised his right hand and put it on Xianxia's eyes to close them. His actions were gentle, as if he was afraid of bothering the headhunter's deceased spirit. He let out a light sigh and was just about to get up when his eyes fell on the baby's leg bone in Xianxia's hand. Is it because of this? He picked it up silently, but did not check whether there was anything wrong with it and just quietly put it away in his bosom. Standing up straight, he looked at the once familiar tribe. It was already past midnight, but the moonlight was still bright since the full moon hung in the sky. The silvery light scattered on the earth, serving as a mirror to the snow on the ground, causing the sky and earth to not seem so dark, allowing some degree of visibility. He was just about to leave when a slight hint of warmth emitted from the area around his chest. He lowered his head and took out an object from his bosom. That object was also a bone, but it was the bone of a beast, the bone the tribe leader of Dark Mountain Tribe had gifted him when they parted ways. If this thing turns red, then it means that Dark Mountain Tribe is completely safe. For the first time since a long time ago, a smile appeared on Su Ming's face. The bone in his hand was letting off a red light and a faint hint of warmth. The tribe is safe. He took a deep breath. At that moment, a loud, thunderous boom came from Black Flame Mountain, which was located in Dark Mountain, far away from the tribe. Su Ming lifted his head abruptly and immediately saw the summit of Black Flame Mountain erupting as the booming sound occurred. The stones at the top of the mountain shattered, and the sound reverberated all over the place. Due to the crack at the top of the mountain, from where he stood, Su Ming saw the elder fighting against Bai Tu in the sky right behind the collapsed mountaintop. The elder seemed to be retreating, and he also seemed to be heavily injured. The red fog that was all over the sky tumbled after the elder, and the faint shape of the wings of the moon formed inside. There was also a person standing on top of that wings of the moon. This battle had gone on for a very long time. The elder of Black Mountain Tribe had originally thought that with his powers of the Transcendence Realm, he could end the massacre quickly, but he did not expect that up till now, Mo Sang would still be holding out against him. More importantly, from what he could tell, Mo Sang might not have reached Transcendence Realm, but he had a lot of Berserker arts at hand, most of which he had never seen before. The might of those Berserker arts could even compare with the power of Transcendence. If he hadn't mastered the fallen Berserker art and continuously absorbed the Earth's vitality as he fought, this battle would have been incredibly difficult. The moment Mo Sang was expelled from the red mist, Bai Tu charged out from the wings of the moon towards him. He no longer dared to use the wings of the moon that were formed from his Berserker mark. After all, he had lost control of it once, and that incident had not only left behind an impression, but also a hint of fear in his heart. He didn't know why, but the Berserker blood in his body was restless, as if he was about to lose control of it, and it was going to charge out. But that wasn't even the main point. What frightened Bai Tu the most was a desire that kept growing inside him. This desire did not stem from his mind, but the blood flowing in his veins. It was as if it was trying to lead him in a direction somewhere on the land to worship something. If he hadn't forcefully quelled that impulse with the power he had gained in the Transcendence Realm, this battle would not have lasted to this point. Su Ming stood in the tribe. Once he saw the sight in the sky, he rushed wordlessly towards Dark Mountain. He could not fly, so it was impossible for him to participate in the sky battle, but he could go to Dark Mountain and stand at the very top. Its summit was the place closest to the sky. Only when he was there could he help the elder. As Su Ming continued running towards the top, a strange light flashed in his eyes. The countless moonlight threads floating behind him looked like solidified moonlight. The tribe is safe now. I no longer need to worry about the others. With my strength, I shouldn't be able to join the fight between the elders, and if I go, it'll only cause the elder to worry and distract him. Su Ming's expression was calm. He was no longer as loud and reckless as he was before. Although he was anxious, he could now assess the situation calmly. If that incident where I controlled the wings of the moon hadn't happened, I wouldn't go, but now, I might really be able to help the elder. He turned into a long red arc and dashed into the forest, bringing with him the numerous moonlight threads. I'll go to the place closest to the sky, closest to the full moon, and perform the burning of blood. The red light charged through the forest at an incredible speed. That thought had not just occurred to Su Ming. He had already come up with that idea when he first saw the wings of the moon formed by the red fog behind Baitu. In fact, he had already had a faint inkling when he saw the Berserker mark in the shape of the wings of the moon on the center of Baitu's brows. Since the incident where he had used his willpower to control the wings of the moon, that idea was no longer a mere inkling, but became a complete plan. There are many wings of the moon in the 5 summits of Dark Mountain. When I performed the burning of blood before, I had the feeling that the wings of the moon were restless. If my guess is correct, then if I perform the burning of blood on Dark Mountain during full moon, I can make them even more worked up, which will also affect Baitu, who clearly practices fire berserker arts. After the days of trauma experienced by the tribe, Su Ming had learned how not to be reckless, and how to be calm and quiet. He did not choose to go to Black Flame Mountain, but went towards Dark Dragon Mountain. The red arc trailed a very long line through the forest. From a distance, it looked like a red ribbon that would not break no matter how it moved. Time passed by. Soon, the long red arc wound through the forest, and Su Ming, traveling on the familiar path, approached one of the 5 summits of Dark Mountain, Dark Dragon Mountain. He could not remember how many times he had climbed this mountain. It could even be said that he was familiar with every nook and cranny of the place. The moment he got closer, the long red arc jumped into the air, and with a few leaps, Su Ming climbed up the mountain without stopping, charging towards the top in the span of a few breaths. He ran at his full speed along the back of the mountain, hence Baitu and Mo Sang, who were fighting against each other in the sky, did not notice his actions on Dark Dragon Mountain, despite it being located not too far away. Besides, they were in a state where they could not divide even a tiny bit of their attention elsewhere. Yet for some reason, anxiety and fear suddenly rose up in Baitu. The rampant state of his berserker blood became much stronger all of a sudden, as if his blood was boiling in his body. It made him afraid, and he quickly retreated, using some power to forcefully quell that feeling down. His expression changed to one of dismay. Just what is happening? He was shocked but did not have time to think about it. Mo Sang used that chance to close in on him, and they were engaged in a fight once again. Mo Sang was already running dry and was incredibly exhausted, yet he had already fought to the extent where he could not leave even if he wanted to. Jing Nan was not here yet either, which made worry and a sense of danger rise in him. At that moment, Su Ming was rushing up Dark Dragon Mountain towards the top. When he passed by the cracks, he could feel wings of the moon on edge deep below. My guess should be correct. Light flashed through Su Ming's eyes. He continued climbing upwards, and before long, he stood at the top of Dark Dragon Mountain. Wind whistled by, lifting his hair and causing his torn beast skin shirt to flap. Yet he stood there with his back straight and looked at the sky, towards the red fog by Black Flame Mountain that covered the sky, and at the 2 flashing figures that clashed and quickly separated from each other inside the fog with the dark python's roars thundering around. There was also a pressure that appeared when the Elder and Baitu cast their berserker arts, which caused a change in their surroundings. Su Ming took in a deep breath and sat down cross-legged. He lifted his head in one swift motion and looked at the brilliant moon in the sky. The moon was round, and its light was bright. It fell into Su Ming's eyes, and he felt as if his blood was about to burn at any moment. Elder, Su Ming will accompany you. The shadow of the blood-red moon in Su Ming's eyes became even clearer. As the blood in his body started boiling, and a burning sensation filled his entire person, he raised his right hand and bit his fingertips before pressing them to his left eye. The 4th burning of blood. The moment the blood on his fingertips touched his left eye, Dark Dragon Mountain lurched underneath his body. In fact, the instant Dark Dragon Mountain shook, Dark Mountain with all 5 of its summits started trembling. At the same time, all wings of the moon within the 5 summits screeched and howled in excitement. They wanted to rush out of the blood-red tree that kept them contained. They madly scratched and clawed at the big tree with red eyes as they cried out with unbelievable excitement. They wanted to rush out and worship their king. At that moment, Baitu suddenly trembled while fighting against Mo Sang in the red fog. He quickly retreated, dismay and panic appearing on his face. He was losing control over the berserker blood in his body, and his blood was crashing all over his body. There was a strong urge growing in him, making him incapable of resisting, to kneel down and worship in the direction of Dark Dragon Mountain. How could this be? Bai Tu looked pathetic. Blood flowed out of the corner of his mouth when he forced down the terrifying desire. At the same time, he saw a figure of a frail person sitting on top of Dark Dragon Mountain. Chapter 105: Battle on the Moon. An incredible killing intent appeared in Bai Tu's eyes. With just one glance, he could tell that the source of his terror came from the person sitting on Dark Mountain. He was about to get closer when the elder noticed Bai Tu's strange behavior and also saw Su Ming sitting on top of Dark Dragon Mountain. He narrowed his eyes and swiftly took one step forward, blocking Bai Tu's path. Once again, Mo Sang engaged Bai Tu in battle with his tired body. As Bai Tu howled in anger, the thick, great fog behind him quickly gathered up before turning into a wings of the moon that could cover the sky if it spread its wings. The wings of the moon looked at where Su Ming was, and an incredible struggle appeared on its face. It was as if there were two wills in its body. One of it came from Bai Tu, and the other came from the deceased spirits of the Fire Berserker tribe, telling him to go to the person who was burning his blood and worship him. Su Ming was looking at the moon in the sky. In his eyes, the moon had turned entirely red. He shuddered. Trying to incite the burning of his blood with his right index finger was as difficult as usual. Members of the ancient Fire Berserker tribe. I, Su Ming, have learned the Fire Berserker art, and now I am performing the burning of my blood on Dark Mountain, recreating the Fire Berserker art. If your souls are here, why won't you help me? His eyes were firm. As he mumbled, he swiped his right index finger across his eyes, and when a sharp pain rose in his left eye, a fire that seemed to burn the sky erupted forth. Su Ming had managed to complete the burning of his left eye. The moment his left eye completed the burning, all 5 summits in Dark Mountain shook once again. This time, the trembling was much stronger than before. A large amount of gravel fell from the mountains and tumbled downwards. It was as if there was a struggle within Dark Mountain, as if a giant underneath it that wanted to rise and stand up. Bai Tu, who was still fighting with Mo Sang, let out a pained, sharp cry. His eyes, ears, nose, and mouth started bleeding, and he tumbled backwards. His eyes were bloodshot, and there seemed to be the faint shape of the moon in his pupils. He looked wretched. His hair was a mess, and he was bleeding all over his body. A flash passed through Mo Sang's eyes. He chased after Bai Tu without the intention of letting him go. At the same time, the giant wings of the moon in the sky shuddered and let out piercing howls like there were two wills clashing furiously within it. Kill him. Wings of the moon formed by my berserker blood. Kill him. Bai Tu shouted in a shrill voice. He raised his right hand and struck his chest. The picture of the wings of the moon on the center of his brows immediately let out a piercing light, causing the conflict within the eyes of the wings of the moon to gradually disappear as it continued howling. The same murderous look as Bai Tu's appeared in its eyes instead. It flapped its wings and charged towards Su Ming, who was on Dark Dragon Mountain. Bai Tu quickly spread his arms wide as he retreated, and immediately, wisps of white air appeared from the ground, rushing towards him, causing the injuries on his body to rapidly heal. He took a big step forward and engaged Mo Sang. As booming sounds reverberated in the air, Mo Sang, though his face was pale, gritted his teeth and fought back. The giant wings of the moon closed in on Dark Dragon Mountain like an endless cloud. Its cries turned into a huge gust of wind, as if it was about to uproot the whole Dark Dragon Mountain. Yet the moment it got closer, Su Ming, who had been sitting down, stood up swiftly. With the shadow of the blood-red moon in his eyes, he looked at the approaching giant wings of the moon. Leave. His voice was calm. He removed his right index finger from his left eye and placed it on his right eye, giving an aloof look to the wings of the moon. Built as big as the peak of a mountain, Su Ming himself was built on the leaner side. Compared to the huge wings of the moon, he was nothing, yet the moment his voice traveled out coldly, the gigantic body of the wings of the moon trembled. It stopped 100 feet away. The murderous look in its eyes turned into conflict and pain. This sight struck Mo Sang with disbelief. It also made Bai Tu shake furiously. It was as if he was the wings of the moon, and there was an indescribable force coming from the frail body standing on Dark Dragon Mountain, shaking the sky. As Bai Tu trembled, he pushed Mo Sang away with a punch and bit his tongue. The moment he coughed out blood, he pressed his right hand to the center of his brows. Then with a roar, tore away the mark of the wings of the moon from the center of his brows. The flesh that was torn away was surrounded by the blood that Bai-Tu coughed out before beginning the burning, sending out a large amount of red mist. At the same time, the wings of the moon 100 feet away from Su Ming rapidly flamed up, turning into a sea of fire. But there was no hint of struggle in its eyes as it sank into the flames. It charged towards Su Ming instead. There was only 100 feet between them, so it could instantly close up the distance. By the looks of it, it wanted to devour Su Ming. Su Ming still remained calm. At the very instant the wings of the moon pounced on him, he swiped his right index finger across his right eye. The sky changed, the clouds and the wind tumbled backwards, and thunderous roars arose from Dark Dragon Mountain. This was the fourth burning of blood. Yet this time, the number of blood veins within Su Ming's body did not increase. Instead, as Dark Dragon Mountain shook furiously underneath him, the moon in the sky no longer appeared red only in Su Ming's eyes, it started turning red before everyone's. The night of the blood-red moon. The moment the blood-red moon appeared, within the endless forest spanning around Dark Mountain, the people from Black Mountain Tribe who hid themselves to avoid fighting let out terrified screams and gasps when they saw the crimson moon. The blood-red moon. Why is the blood-red moon here? Didn't the blood-red moon just appear recently? Why is it here again? It weren't just the Black Mountain Tribe members hiding in the forest who reacted this way. The same terrified and forlorn screams echoed within their tribe as all the remaining tribe members quickly hid themselves, trembling. The members of Dark Mountain Tribe were still in the process of migrating to Windstream Tribe. There were dozens of berserkers from Windstream around them with Yi Wang and Chen Chong acting as the leaders. They had received orders from the tribe leader to assist Dark Mountain Tribe. When they met them on their way, they acted as escorts. At that moment, they too saw the blood-red moon in the sky, and their expressions changed. Dark Dragon Tribe too saw the blood-red moon. An outcry filled with fear and shock resounded. In the sky above Dark Mountain, Bai-Tu was also taken aback momentarily by the sight of the blood-red moon, but his eyes were soon filled with ecstasy. He was not afraid of the crimson moon. He charged towards Mo Sang, causing the other man to retreat. Blood flowed down from Bai-Tu's lips and was flung out, turning into droplets that scattered in the air. With some unknown berserker art, they fell on Mo Sang's body, causing the elder to be sent tumbling back. Bai-Tu was about to close in on him when a furious voice that sounded like rumbling thunder suddenly came from Dark Dragon Mountain. Bai-Tu! Violent tremors shook Dark Dragon Mountain. Many stones rolled down, resulting in loud crashes. Dust billowed out into the forest at the foot of the mountain, stirring up the snow on the ground and forming a large round force of power with Dark Mountain as the center. As the roar echoed in the sky from the large amount of cracks in the summits, howls and sounds of wings flapping came through, as did pairs upon pairs of red eyes. Very soon, wings of the moon rushed out of the cracks. Their eyes were filled with red light, and as they charged out, they looked as if they had covered the sky and earth with their endless numbers. The next instant, Black Flame Mountain and the other summits started shaking and rumbling, and all the other wings of the moon tore through the red barrier holding them back and abruptly stormed out. That scene was akin to the apocalypse. The wings of the moon, who only appeared once every few years, had come once again. The sky was filled with wings of the moon. Their numbers at the very least amounted to tens of thousands. They surrounded Su Ming, covering him from sight, as their cries shook the sky and earth. Their eyes were filled with agitation and excitement. After surrounding Su Ming, their cries seemed to turn into sounds of worship as they circled around him. It was as if Su Ming was their king. Bai-Tu trembled. When he lifted his head and saw that scene, his expression changed. It was full of shock that had never once appeared on his face. As he looked at the countless wings of the moon, covering the sky and earth, he even forgot to breathe. It was as if there were thunderbolts flashing in his head, striking him completely dumb. He could feel that there was a powerful fire berserker art within Su Ming. That was the true fire berserker art, and it was completely different from the art he had received through outside help. This is... He took a gulp as he mumbled out an incomplete sentence. The difference between the faint shadow of the moon in his eyes compared to Su Ming's was far too great. The killing intent within the eyes of the giant wings of the moon that was closing in on Su Ming completely disappeared, replaced by a fanatic and excited look. It also started circling Dark Dragon Tribe, which was right underneath Su Ming. Something flashed in Su Ming's eyes. There was no hint of surprise on his face. Cries of excitement echoed in his ears. His vision was filled with the sight of wings of the moon flying by. When he raised his hand, there was even one wings of the moon that landed on his palm as if it was kneeling down. The fanatic look in its eyes was clear as day. At that moment, Su Ming had a strange feeling that he could control these wings of the moon and make them fight for him. He could feel the excitement coming from them. He could feel their agitation and the glory they had desired for a long time. Su Ming clenched his fists and took a step forward. Immediately, the wings of the moon opened up a path for him, causing him to arrive at the cliff of Dark Dragon Mountain. He did not stop but took another step onto the air. When his foot landed, he did not fall. Wings of the moon flew underneath his foot, letting him step on it. It supported Su Ming's body, allowing him to walk in the air. Su Ming did not stop. He lifted his head. There was a firm and stubborn look in his eyes. He wanted to help the elder, to fight against that damn Baitu alongside the elder. Su Ming hated Baitu to the core. It was because of this person that the war had happened. It was because of this person that their people had to leave their homes in sadness and fight continuously with death hanging over their heads constantly as they moved. This was all Baitu's fault. With this hate and resolution, Su Ming turned into a long red arc and charged towards Baitu in midair, countless moonlight threads trailing behind him. He did not know how to fly, but with each step he took, wings of the moon would appear under his feet, accurately forming a path for him so that he could travel at full speed. Around him, the wings of the moon that covered the sky and earth, along with the wings of the moon that had originally belonged to Baitu too, charged forward by his side. If anyone had looked from the distance, it would have seemed like someone took a brush and quickly drew a line across the sky. The line was formed by the wings of the moon, allowing Su Ming to travel in the air. It made all those who saw it be struck dumb by amazement and disbelief. The number of wings of the moon in the sky could not be counted. With Su Ming leading the charge, they quickly formed a straight line in the sky, shooting up like an arrow. The killing intent in Su Ming's eyes was great. His speed had exceeded Baitu's expectations, same as the elder's. In an instant, he arrived before the elder with the wings of the moon and stopped him from tumbling backwards. He used his body and his resolution to stand before the clearly exhausted elder. The elder did not know why and how Su Ming had triggered the appearance of the wings of the moon, or why they would want to worship him, but when he looked at him a smile appeared on his face. He might be exhausted, had offered his life away, and had blood flowing from his lips, but he was still happy. Su Ming had truly grown up. He could help him now. The frail body standing before him had grown up in his eyes, like a mountain. Baitu. Su Ming knew that his power was not enough for him to think that he could win against Baitu. What he would be using were the countless wings of the moon. He could make those wings of the moon fight for him with his will. That was the vague thought that had become clear in his head. The moment he shouted out Baitu's name, Su Ming, who stood before the elder protectively, held up blood scales in his right hand. The 243 blood veins in his body formed into one, and he threw the spear towards Baitu with a powerful throw. Blood scales let out a piercing crack in the air as Su Ming gathered all his chi together and fused it into the spear, causing it to seem to slice through the sky like a crack of red lightning, rushing towards Baitu. At the same time, Su Ming embedded his will into all the wings of the moon, causing those around him to let out shrill cries and charge out. As the wings of the moon that covered the sky and earth rushed out, they formed a picture in the sky that would be incredibly difficult to replicate with the brush. In that picture, the wings of the moon charged towards Baitu after the long spear. Even the giant wings of the moon that originally belonged to Baitu let out a roar and rushed out as well. With the long spear as the tip, the numerous wings of the moon formed the shape of an arrow and closed in on the dumbstruck Baitu in a split second, as if they were about to destroy him. He had obtained his powers of transcendence from the wings of the moon, and now, they were about to take it back. It was akin to an inescapable fate of his. Baitu's face was pale. As he quickly withdrew, the desire within his body that wanted to rush out and worship Su Ming like the wings of the moon became stronger. He lifted his right hand in pain and stabbed his chest with a finger. A black wisp of air immediately spread out, and once it surrounded his body, that urge slightly dissipated. Yet he had to pay a price. It made him stumble backwards, and his face became paler. Madness appeared in his eyes. Facing off against the countless wings of the moon, covering the sky, and blood scales, he shouted towards the sky. As he shouted, a dark light flew out from his mouth, turning into a black cauldron that was about the size of a person before him. There were numerous tortured faces carved on the cauldron. Some of them were screaming in pain, some were terrifying to look at, some were crying, and some were letting out soundless roars of fury. The entire cauldron let out a cold and frightening presence. When it appeared, it was as if the whole area around them froze. Beware of that cauldron. He used it once before. It has some sort of strange ability. If I didn't sacrifice some of my life with the 7 needles, I wouldn't have been able to fight against it. But it also seems like he can't use its full power. Once he uses it, he'll immediately weaken, the elder explained, his expression changing quickly. All of you die. Baitu's face was ferocious. The blood he coughed out landed on the cauldron, and it immediately started expanding, letting out an eerie light. As it grew, Baitu's body immediately started withering. It seemed like his flesh and life were being sucked away by the pained faces on the cauldron. In an instant, the cauldron grew to the size of about 100 feet, and the old and experienced presence on it became much stronger. As the eerie light glowed, the many carved faces came to life and rushed out from the cauldron. When those faces appeared, their cries of pain and sadness echoed in the sky. At the same time, Su Ming's blood scales and the large amount of wings of the moon closed in as they sliced through the air. Large numbers from both sides crashed into each other like 2 bundles of thick black clouds, causing a strong tremor and a loud boom. As the booming sound echoed in the sky, the human faces burst open like bubbles, ripped apart madly when the wings of the moon rushed in. Even so, a single wings of the moon was not strong. Usually, once one of them ripped apart one of the human faces, they would turn into a red wisp that rose up into the sky. Yet once those human faces were torn apart, their faces were no longer filled with pain, but instead seemed to be freed from something. It was as if their appearance was not so that they could continue fighting, but to seek death. They were looking for a source for them to no longer be in pain. These people had once belonged to Black Mountain Tribe. But some of them were also from Dark Dragon Tribe and Dark Mountain Tribe, those who had disappeared and died a long time ago. There were even some people who Baitu had obtained from somewhere before he fused them into the fallen Berserker vessel. It was an item to which he offered the souls of those who had been wronged. The roaring sounds continued in the sky, as if they were going to last until everything was destroyed. Once blood scales, which had gathered Su Ming's entire power, rushed through the pained faces with the help of the wings of the moon pouncing on those faces, it broke through without resistance and stabbed the giant cauldron. The moment the spear pierced the cauldron, blood scales trembled furiously, and cracks started appearing from the tip of the spear until they spread all over the spear. Blood scales shattered into numerous shards and fell on the giant cauldron. The cauldron shook. Su Ming's attack should not have been able to cause any harm to it, but because blood scales broke, a loud bang exploded with the strongest force it had ever shown, one that was summoned from its very life. It caused the cauldron to shake and a tiny crack to appear. At the same time, the countless wings of the moon howled and rushed towards the cauldron. As they madly crashed into the cauldron, the crack became bigger. It may have seemed to have happened over a long period of time, but this all took place in only the span of a few breaths. A sound as if the gate of heaven opened rang and the cauldron broke in half before falling to the ground. The moment the cauldron broke apart, Baitu coughed out a mouthful of blood and staggered backwards. Still, a vicious grin appeared on his face. Cauldron slaughter. A large amount of blood also flowed out of Su Ming's mouth when blood scales broke. Blood Scales was his very first Berserker vessel. It had fought with him against Wu Sen, and stayed by his side when he slaughtered his enemies during the tribe's migration. Now, as it broke, Su Ming's body was not the only one injured, he also felt reluctant to part with it. Yet this reluctance was forced down by Su Ming. A strong presence of danger suddenly came from ahead. A large amount of black mist appeared from the 2 halves of the broken cauldron that fell to the ground and gathered together in an instant, turning into a gigantic human face. It let out a scream and charged into the sky as the cauldron continued falling. That face was hundreds of feet long. It opened its mouth wide, moving in to swallow Su Ming whole. The elder's expression changed from where he stood behind Su Ming. He swiftly went forward and was about to push Su Ming away to stop the face from approaching, but Su Ming had already taken a step forward and remained standing before the elder. He spread his arms wide, and Wings of the Moon immediately rushed towards him with bloodshot eyes. They closed in on him in an instant and landed on him, covering him up in multiple layers. The giant Wings of the Moon that had originally belonged to Baitu also did the same. In the blink of an eye, just as Su Ming was about to be swallowed by the giant face coming from below him, he was covered by a large number of Wings of the Moon, turning into a gigantic Wings of the Moon in the sky. It may have looked like it was only one Wings of the Moon, but in truth, it was formed by an unimaginable amount of Wings of the Moon gathered together. Fire! A sound that shook the sky came from above the huge Wings of the Moon. That voice belonged to Su Ming, yet it also belonged to the countless Wings of the Moon. With the voice, a powerful presence erupted forth from the gigantic Wings of the Moon. That presence did not belong to Su Ming, but to the Wings of the Moon. Su Ming's body was the heart of the Wings of the Moon, his mind their will. He could control the body of the giant Wings of the Moon. The moment the command of fire came from his mouth, a large amount of moonlight descended around the Wings of the Moon, turning into a silver sea of fire with the Wings of the Moon as the center, and it continued spreading towards its surroundings in the sky. When the silver sea of fire appeared and started spreading, the giant human face that seemed as if it was going to swallow Su Ming immediately sank into pain. The sea of fire surrounded it, and as it let out pained screeches, it was burned to ashes, engulfed in flames hundreds of feet away from the giant Wings of the Moon that surrounded Su Ming. The same moment the face was burned, the giant Wings of the Moon with Su Ming within flew towards Baitu, standing in the distance as he continued to be surrounded by the silver sea of fire. Baitu's face was pale as he stared wide-eyed. He could still not believe what he was seeing, but he was, after all, a powerful berserker in the transcendence realm. He also had a lot of battle experience. He quickly retreated, already looking at Su Ming as more of a threat than Mo Sang. Verdant berserk chains. Baitu raised his right hand and pointed towards the sky. A crack immediately appeared from the torn and blooded center part of his brows. It was the same as when Nan Song had cast this art, but the crack continued spreading from his face down his body until it reached his lower abdomen. It was as if his entire body was split apart by someone. A dense, green presence rushed out of the crack on his body and surrounded Baitu as it turned into verdant mist chains.